Welcome back to the channel here, guys. Thanks again for joining me. It's Brendan. I'm down in the lair. So it is time. The build is going to officially begin on the Hangar 9 Horizon Hobby Xcub. So my goal is here as I take you through the build, I'm going to time lapse everything. I'll stop for little pieces, show you what I'm going to do in that segment, and then we'll put the time lapses in there. So hopefully everything will work out. So where we start with in the manual, that's all I'm going to do is follow it. By the way, this build is actually done in the newest edition of Model Aviation. You should have received that in the mail as an AMA member, but I got mine and it's time to get rolling. So we're going to start with the wing, follow the manual. So one of the first things we have to do is we are going to mask off all of the slots for the control horns. So the control horns are going to fit in here 1 millimeter off of all the openings. There's 2 openings in this surface, so ailerons, elevator, and then in rudder. So we could put our ball link controls in there. 1 millimeter tape. I'm using 3M delicate in there. And all I am going to do in each one of these is they're all marked. Each horn is marked aileron on the bottom, elevator, and you can also see the ones with rudder. So these are literally a fiberglass painted control horn. So they want you to take a 3 millimeter 3x15 screw, and if you're not sure how those work, 3 millimeter is the diameter, 15 is from the top to the, if you could see at the edge of the head, so you're only measuring the threaded portions here. So 3 by diameter, 15 threaded in total length. They want you to find the horn that you want. You're going to place this thing in here like so. Then the next thing you're going to do is apply tape. You're going to tape this thing off. We are going to then take some light grit sandpaper and we're going to sand off all of that painted surface here. And then you're finally going to take some regular alcohol that I'm going to use. You put a little bit on a rag. And you want to make sure that you hold it up here, because this is what's going to epoxy and it's going to hold all your stuff together. So make sure you get the paint off all the way around, and we're going to clean those surfaces like that. So I got a couple here that I'm already ready to go, but I'm going to prep the rest of these and do an install. And when we go to install these things, we want to try and use we're going to use a building square to make sure that they're straight on here, and the tape is just to get a little fillet of epoxy going up the side. So anyway, time to do the time lapses, and we'll catch up with you again soon. So the next big steps, we have all of the horns epoxied into place. So if you guys can see those, so right now they're curing. I did the aileron horns and flap horns yesterday, so they should be good to go. These things, and if you can see, I'll try and get in there so you can see it. There's some small fillets of epoxy that go around the base of those things when they're put in, and then you use the hymen ends here as a spacer. So basically you can make these stay secure and kind of form them to the exact size of those hymen ends. So this thing will be set off to the side to cure. So what we are going to work on now is servo and the wing installation. So what I do in order to set this stuff up is I literally take a spare receiver. I'm waiting on my power safe receiver yet, power it up with a battery, and I'll actually just use the regular aileron. And for now, I'm just going to power the radio on, so that way I can actually center this with my aileron stick, so I know that servo position is set. We're going to do the same thing in the wing that we are here. So during the installation, we're actually going to wind up drilling into each one of those. So we have a spot for the servo screws to go in, and then we're going to take, after they're drilled, a little bit of CA in there to harden the holes and get that whole thing set up. And I'm going to trim that servo arm down so it's exactly the 1 inch that I want. So here, again on the wing, you can see the horn installation is done, and I pulled off the cover, strings taped off to the side. I already drilled those out and CA'd those, so they're hardened. Before you CA them, you want to run the screw in and take it out and then harden them so the threads are cut. But this thing is ready to have the lead attached to it and pulled through. So you're going to need the servo extensions for those. Remember, what you can't see, we don't trust, so we tape that stuff up. But for now, we're going to do both ailerons, install those, both flaps, and install those, so that'll be in the next time lapse. Good Lord, ain't nobody got time for this stuff. You want to talk about the things that make you drink? All right, so during the time lapse, I had to stop. Went to bed yesterday, like couldn't take it anymore. So this is supposed to be a relaxing hobby, and last night just wasn't. So this Xcub's making me say all kinds of bad words, and sometimes you got to walk away from stuff and come back to it. So let me show you what's going on here. So a couple things. I thought that the packaging on this stuff held up well. There's a couple things that I've come across that aren't so great. So again, you know, you got some dings and dents and stuff in there. I don't know. I thought I'd be okay with it. Maybe not. I'll see if Hangar Horizon will do anything about this. I don't like it. It's underneath the plane. That's the only good part. No one's going to see it. And be honest with you, I don't know. How bad am I going to beat it up in my trailer anyway? But it annoys me. And I'm working on the left wing panel right now in the time lapse. And this was the only one I didn't take out of the wrapper. So as I flip this thing over, you guys notice I use a soft bed sheet anytime I'm working with monocoat, because especially anything that you put pressure on will leave marks in the monocoat, and you don't want that. So I protect it. So this panel door for the flaps had tape on it, and it was popped off and it was flopping around in the bag. So of course, everywhere that this door was resting, it has everything jacked up here. And again, it's under the plane, but you spend a good amount of money for this stuff, and I don't know, it just gives you the heebie-jeebies. So anyway, so this is the crap that makes me drink. Here we go. You ready? Note in the book. I'm doing these flaps, right? So I want you to see this. I'll try and zoom in. Trying not to create a shadow here on it. But anyway, I hope you can read that. I hope it zooms in. You have to make these push rod lengths. This is 6.5, 152 millimeter. Okay. So what do you feel more comfortable with? Do you feel more comfortable with 6.5? Or do you feel more comfortable with the 152? So I have this nice mat right here that I use for all my charting. I lay stuff out on there. It's a nice rule on my cutting mat. Well, guess what? I used 152. It is nowhere near 6.5 inches. You're off by like 10 millimeters there. So when we talk about like what's a pain to get into, all the linkage inside of here, dude, it's a pain to get into. So the error in the book is like back and forth with this crap like 3 times. It's driving me insane before I figured out they got a typo in the book. On top of that, here comes the bigger part. So when you get your flaps done, All right, you got to power up your servos. Servos are all the way in the inside of there, hard to get to. You power up your servos and put all the linkage in. You put the door on and you go to use this flap, all right, and you go to feel it, and this thing got monster slop in it. Like, I am talking monster slop. And I'm talking probably almost a 1/4 inch of slop. So anyway, not going to happen. I don't fly any planes with slop in the control surfaces, so I got to figure out what it is. So I took it apart, thought it was my servos. I'm using the Hi-Techs, the, oh God, what are these things? 5945s, I think they were. So anyway, tried another one. Nope, not it. Tried new arms. Nope, not it. So it all comes back to this linkage in here where all this slop is. And there's slop in the hinge surface, so I'm just going to actuate this thing, and hopefully you guys can see it. So if you look on the inside of there, basically it's an articulation issue between this hinge right here and the servo arm. So on the inside of this thing, you can't fix that. I tried going with every servo hole known to man on the inside, and it is absolutely no different. And you just had all of this slop. So going back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. So what I ultimately did, if you can see on the inside of there, is I basically created this plywood stop right there. So I glued it in underneath that push rod. So that way this thing, when it comes down, which means the flap is in the up position, the thing bottoms out against there. And that got rid of the articulation slop. So basically what that is some type of engineering faux pas. I don't know how that thing should be. All I can tell you is that you have to rely on the modeler and yourself to find a fix. You could fly it like that, but any surface that has slop, it's going to flutter, and flutter is going to cause it to come apart. When it comes apart, you can watch $1,000+ a plane go right down into the ground and go, oh, well, that's modeling. Well, it's not. This is the stuff we need to fix. And sometimes you don't need to be an engineer to fix it. Sometimes you just need to be a modeler and hack stuff, right? So sometimes we're hacks. That's kind of a hack fix. I'm going to paint it. You'll never see it, but it gets rid of all the slop. So anyway, now that I know what I'm in for, number 2. Let's go off to the other side, back to the time lapse, and we're going to kick it again. All right, guys.